My name is Jae Young Lee from Korea, former member of the parliament.
Yes, you're a dynamic person.
안녕하세요.
I was reading your CV.
Oh,
and,
really?
yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
I've never thought that I was dynamic, but thank you very much.
You know, let me tell you that Klaus Schwab doesn't take anyone who's not dynamic with him. All right. So if you
Actually,
were
I was
go ahead.
I was a member of the Asia team, and CIA. CII and the forum had a very long-term relationship, and I've been to India a couple of times because we always had that the forum.
Yeah, in November actually.
Exactly.
So
What a great country,
I've
great
been
memories.
to Davos 14 years
Wow.
in a row. So,
Well, this year you're not going to be able to go, right? Or next year, rather.
nobody's going this
No.
year.
Nobody's going anywhere.
It's better that way. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so when do you think we'll begin?
I think we just started already. Who's moderating actually?
I'm moderating it, but I don't see anyone on the screen.
Oh, I see everyone else on the screen.
I see nobody.
Oh, okay.
I don't see anybody on the screen, Marut.
Everyone's. I see in the screen, and I see everyone. I see all 5 members.
So call,
They're all
I
there.
am very much here, Secretary DP
All right,
IIT,
fair enough.
Guru Mahapatra.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, we can hear
sir.
you.
Now I can
Thank
see
you.
you also. Yeah.
Thank you.
Perfect. So I'm beginning now because we are already 6 minutes late.
Yeah.
So with your permission, everybody, let me welcome everybody to this session on India at the Asian Leadership Conference. And a special welcome goes to Dr. Guru Prasad Mahapatra, Secretary of DPIIT, Ministry of Commerce, Government of India, Ambassador, Excellency Shri Priya Ranganathan, Indian Ambassador to Republic of Korea, Mr. Jae Young Lee, former member of the Korean National Assembly and President of the KGM Lab, and of course, Mr. Sachin Satpute, President of Novelis for Asia. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to extend a warm welcome to all of you at the India session of the Asian Leadership Conference today. CII is very happy to join hands with Chosun Ilbo yet again to bring you this session as part of the Asian Leadership Conference, which has now emerged as a very important annual event where political leaders, senior government officials, business leaders, and scholars from around the world come together to find solutions to major economic issues faced by modern society and foster future leaders. CII enjoys a very close working relationship with the Chosun Ilbo Group in undertaking various initiatives towards strengthening the business and economic relations between our 2 countries. Amidst this very challenging global situation that we are in today, there lies opportunities for both India and Korea to draw up policies and reforms which would help fight the current pandemic. The 2 economies' special partnership can help develop new technologies and solutions for the post-COVID world. Further, both economies enjoy key mutual complementarities and can drive closer business engagement. Over the past few months, our government has unveiled a slew of measures that would help the Indian economy battle and recover from the adverse impacts of COVID-19 crisis with a focus on promoting Atmanirbhar Bharat, transformational and structural reforms which have been introduced across several key areas in India. And at this point, I would like to specially acknowledge the participation of Dr. Mahapatra at this session, as he is heading the ministry, which is largely responsible for bringing in these reforms. Bolstered by regular two-way political exchanges at the highest levels, the economic partnership between Korea and India has flourished, and today it plays a central role in the overall engagement of our two countries. Here again, I would like to specially thank our Embassy of Seoul, led by our very young and dynamic ambassador, Shri Priya Ranganathan, who is participating, and we'll be hearing from her very shortly. India has aimed to achieve its global goal of achieving $5 trillion economy and achieve a $1 trillion mark in manufacturing sector by the year 2025. And it is important that India, to become more competitive and to become a manufacturing destination, has strong partnerships from Korea, especially in the high-tech global manufacturing value chain. At the same time, South Korea is now progressing to build industrial innovation in emerging sectors of future vehicles, IoT-based home appliances, biotechnology, healthcare, and next-gen semiconductors. It has embarked on a strategy to unlock innovation and R&D led by the small and medium enterprises who form the backbone of Indian industry today. South Korean companies are strongly embedded in Indian markets for over 10 decades, and can strategize and leverage India's competitive advantage for setting up further manufacturing facilities in our country. Korea has been in the forefront of innovations in advanced manufacturing practices and is truly championing these areas globally. India thus looks forward to more collaboration and partnership with Korean institutions, be they manufacturing, be they academic, be they research labs, and co-creation of new knowledge between our two countries. We are also privileged now to have with us Mr. Jae Young Lee, former member of the Korean National Assembly, and who is today the president of KGM Lab. And he will also be sharing his views how investments and collaboration can go one step further. On its part, CII is working to strengthen business engagement in inclusive and sustainable growth with a focus on innovation. We recently launched the CII Future Business Group to support the emergence of new age business. CII has also initiated the CII Center for Innovation, Entrepreneurship and Startups, which will support startups with knowledge services and network opportunities. We have set up a finance facilitation center for SMEs to provide advisory and credit facilitation services and support to the small and medium sector. Friends, India and Korea have been forging a transformative collaboration which has expanded the scope of bilateral relations significantly. I am confident that this interaction today shall contribute to an ever-increasing interface between Indian and Korean companies, and even a larger trade and investment between India and Korea. Thank you. Now, to proceed with this webinar, may I suggest and invite Mr. Sachin Saptapade of President Novelis for the whole of Asia to give his remarks. This, let me inform everyone, is India's largest investment in Korea, and indeed it is one of the world's leading, if not number one country. So over to you, Mr. Satpute.
Thank you, Rajiv. Distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, Namaste and Annyeonghaseyo. Greetings from Seoul, South Korea. I'm currently talking from Seoul. So I'm Sachin Satpure, working with Novelis Asia as the president and business head for Asia Pacific operations. Novelis is the world's largest aluminum recycling and rolling company with a global headquarters in Atlanta, US, and Asia Pacific headquarters in Seoul, South Korea. Novelis is a part of India's Aditya Birla Group. I am also currently chairman of ICCK, Indian Chamber of Commerce in Korea. I have stayed with my family in Korea over 8 years. Of course, in two stints. I was here from 2007 to 2011 and now 2016 till date. And we really enjoy staying in this wonderful country. I would like to thank for the speaking opportunity to share my perspective in today's conference. So as Raju mentioned, Novelis has invested over US dollar 1 billion in Korea, and we have two manufacturing units located in Yeongju and Ulsan. Novelis Asia also has a manufacturing footprint in China. At Novelis, we produce high value-added rolled products for packaging industry, automotive, electronics, and aerospace. We are a happy investor in South Korea. Superior infrastructure, heavy industry base, and a high quality human resource support that really supports our manufacturing facility investment in Korea. Korea has a stable economy, and it is a manufacturing hub for high value sectors like electronics, semiconductor, shipping, automotive, industrial equipment, etc. The government here is encouraging knowledge and technology-based industry. Korean market is relatively small, but very quality and brand conscious. South Korea's position as one of the leading innovative nations is a remarkable achievement. Korean consumers are tech savvy. Well, we have a challenge here. The rigid labor environment in Korea is a challenge, but our experience here as a manufacturer is that the labor force here is quite dedicated, disciplined, and skilled. On the other hand, India offers a very attractive alternate destination to Korean companies to diversify their exports and investment footprint. South Korean economy is export dominant economy and has over 40% of the dependence on countries like China and the US. Like China, India has a large consumer base with 1.3 billion population, which is also a young population. So you have a lot of young consumers. With large pool of young and skilled technical human resources, India is emerging as a preferred destination for research and development base. Continuous reforms over past several years have helped India in improving its position in World Bank's Ease of Doing Business 2020 ranking. The government's focus is clearly on investing for improvement in infrastructure in India, which otherwise is a challenging. With the above favorable advantages, backed by India's Look East and Korea's New Southern Policy, provide perfect launchpad for investment growth between two countries. Let me also say a few words about ICCK, as I also wear a hat of ICCK chairman. ICCK, or Indian Chamber of Commerce in Korea, is 10 years young and it has a steadily growing membership base of around 65 members. We help to connect Korean and Indian businesses to explore mutually beneficial opportunities. And thus I wanted to highlight some of the ICCK's efforts. We facilitate B2B and G2B meetings. Delegates from many Indian states visited Korea, and we have facilitated the business meetings with the delegates. ICCK takes the lead in organizing investor camps in India. Now, this is very important because Korean businesses can get first-hand feel of the investment environment and the support systems in India. ICCK also organizes speakers forum and various webinars that can help networking and knowledge sharing among the members and other participants. In association with Embassy of India, we support many cultural events as well. In fact, ICCK Diwali Ball is one of the most awaited and well-attended event in Seoul. So ICCK will continue to play a vital role in economic development and trade promotion between the two countries, Korea and India. There is a growing interest between the business communities, and I hope we will continue to see rising trade and investment between the two countries. Thank you, Dhanyawad, and Kamsahamnida.
Thank you very much, Mr. Satpute, for your initiating remarks. It's now with the greatest of pleasure that I invite Mr. Lee Jing Young to address us. Mr. Lee has wide experience working as a young parliamentarian on various committees on strategy, finance, gender equality, and he is also the chairman, even today, of the Korea Orienting Federation. He has extensive experience working also with the World Economic Forum in Asia. So over to you, Mr. Lee.
Thank you for that very kind introduction. And let me just begin by saying that I'm very honored to be a part of this excellent group. And I think this session, co-hosted by CII and the Joseonilbo, is very necessary and very important, given that we have to navigate through this sort of unprecedented situation, this global pandemic, and we're trying to figure out how to live with this pandemic. And probably we will have to face more of these type of situations in the future. Maybe not COVID, but even more different types of pandemics would show up as we go along. And I think it is very important for countries to work together in order to figure out how to survive and actually not just survive, but to flourish even with this situation. So I'm very, again, thankful and honored to be here. I think since I was in the parliament in 2012 to 16, there was huge, I think it was beginning of sort of a very close and strong relationship that was forming between India and Korea. I remember visiting India, and I remember a lot of Indian officials and businessmen were invited to Korea to have business. And I don't exactly remember when Ssangyong was acquired by Hindra, I believe, but I think it was right before, around that time, when India's because Ssangyong is such a huge brand name, that India's picture was getting into general consumers' minds in Korea. And I also remember going to India and find out by very surprised by how popular Korea brands are in India. Not just Hyundai, Samsung, the high technology or household names that we know, but even in the food area, where I believe, I don't know if it still is, but Choco Pie is one of the most famous and popular cookies sold in India. So I think it was very surprising to find out, even beyond my knowledge, how close India and Korea was working together already. And even though administrations in Korea have changed in terms of from party to party, I think the relationship that we had or formed with India is ever growing and is showing up in the number. I believe we just surpassed direct investment into India, $1 billion investment, which has a very steep rise. I don't know how it's going to affect this year's figure because I haven't seen that. But until just very recently, it has been very strong. Our trade is more than $20 billion, and it's growing. And I think this trend will continue, and nobody can really actually stop it because this has a great momentum already built in. Now, having said that, I think the challenge is, for speaking from the Korea's perspective, is that it is very not, I won't say easy, but these large corporations, multinationals, they have the capabilities to go to India and do their own research and make their own investment, make that decision. They have enough knowledge and manpower and money to do so. But I think in order to continue this trend, because of we have very strong SME sectors in Korea, we need to figure out how to encourage this business community to go to India. And obviously, the cultural issue, the language issue, there's several barriers that these SMEs cannot overcome by themselves is something that I think Indian government and Korean government can work very closely together to support. And if that happens, I believe this trend will even have more momentum moving forward. And having said that, on the business side, and obviously India and Korea, although not part of this session, topic of this session is that we have very strong incentives to work together geopolitically. I mean, India and Korea, we could have very stronger ties. I think we should have a stronger ties on several areas, such as military areas and other geopolitical issues. We can have very deep discussions because there are rising concerns about uneasiness in this part of this world. And I think that is something that we can work very closely together, not just with India, but also regionally together. But just to finish off my comment, this bilateral relationship that we have with India is already good, it's growing, it's got the momentum, and I think there is going to be a even more flourishing relationship between two of us, and I think government can definitely play a stronger role, especially in the SME sectors that I've said before. And again, thank you for having me here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lee, for your comments. It's now with a special pleasure and privilege for me to invite our very dynamic ambassador, Her Excellency Shri Priya Ranganathan, to give us her address. She has a lot of experience and is one of our country's foremost diplomats. So over to you, Shri Priya ji.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rajiv, for those very kind words of welcome. And may I begin by saying what an honor it is to be sharing this stage with my very respected and senior colleague, Secretary DPIIT, Mr. Mahapatra, who I've known for a long time and have the utmost regard for, as also my very dear friend and the president of the Indian Chamber of Commerce in Korea, and also the as it happens, also the head of Novelis Asia, Mr. Satpute. and Chairman Lee, who I think we have met a couple of times, but not really had the opportunity to speak in detail on matters of bilateral consequence. Thank you so much to the Chosen Elbow and CII for organizing this event as part of the Asian Leadership Conference 2020. I think it was an excellent idea to focus the attention of the audience on the opportunities for partnership between India and the Republic of Korea at this time that we are in today, when truly we are enduring the greatest structural shock to the global system since the time of the Second World War. I think it would be fair to say that not a single country across the globe has escaped the economic recession that has followed the COVID-19 outbreak. And virtually all governments are now grappling with the multiple challenges of handling the public health crisis, while at the same time keeping the economy afloat, if not growing, at least prevent the shrinking from happening. Uh, Again, I don't think it would be news to anyone when I say that India has also been affected quite badly by this crisis. We had a lockdown from March to June, which was part of the efforts to contain the spread of the pandemic to the maximum possible extent and give ourselves the breathing space that we needed to build up our healthcare infrastructure and supplies, most importantly, as well as the protocols. Uh, the interesting aspect is that while we reported a GDP contraction of almost 24% in the first quarter of this year, of this financial year, we have in the past few months seen the first signs of recovery. We have seen a flattening. First of all, we've seen a flattening of the COVID-19 curve, and I think that is really, really encouraging. And we are also seeing some very interesting indicators of economic activity showing an improvement. For instance, passenger vehicle sales have increased at 26.5% in the month of September. That's a sign of for us to be optimistic about. Electricity demand, which is again a kind of indicator of the overall health of the economy, electricity demand grew by 3% in the month of September, as opposed to a contraction of 2% the month before. And our GST collections have actually risen again. They've grown by 10.4%. I think these are all indicators of strength of the Indian economy and the fact that we are now turning the tide. Just a few broad elements of what we are doing in India before I very quickly touch upon the India ROK partnership and why it is really critical for us today. We have at this moment, as part of our efforts to address this COVID-19 crisis, announced a Self-Reliant India initiative with a stimulus package of about $270 billion. This is about 10% of the Indian GDP, and the intention of the government is really to try and kickstart economic growth on as many of the critical sectors of the Indian economy as possible. Our effort is also to try and use the strengths, the inherent strengths of the Indian economy to help our friends and partners across the world to also jumpstart their economy. So, in a way, making the most of the Indian economy to power the economic recovery across the world. Analysts across the world are betting on an early Indian recovery. The EIU had forecast that India would be one of the first countries to bounce back after the COVID-19 recession, and they're expecting Indian GDP growth rate to be at 5% in 2021. The World Bank has estimated that Indian growth will be at 8.8% in 2021. I think while I will not hazard any guess on what would be the Indian estimations of our own growth, I can say with a lot of confidence that we have very, very strong fundamentals. Our $3 trillion economy has been growing consistently at 7% from annum, per annum, right from 2003 to 4. And there is a reason for that. And I would again like to emphasize that just over the past 6 years, we have introduced some very, very significant business-friendly, investor-friendly steps, such as the rollout of GST, which was a huge step in itself, dramatic reduction in the corporate tax for new enterprises, new manufacturing enterprises to 17%. We have enacted a world-class bankruptcy law. We have rationalized our labor laws, and we have created very advanced digital infrastructure. I think all of this has helped us a great deal. We have also very recently taken a milestone step in liberalizing our agricultural marketing regulations. And this is intended to attract investments in a sector which is absolutely crucial for the Indian economy, considering the number of people in the country who still rely on agriculture for their livelihood. As a consequence, I would say that we have not only moved up rapidly in the World Bank's ease of doing business rankings, but we have managed to secure over the past 5 years FDI of $255 billion, and over the past 1 year, FDI of $52 billion. And in fact, when the COVID-19 outbreak was at its peak, in the period from April to July, we have secured $20 billion worth of FDI. These are all indicators of the kind of confidence that the world reposes in India, the Indian economy, and the stability and consistency of the policy framework that we have introduced and will stand by. That I now move on to what can India and ROK do together at this time. I think we can and should build on a very, very strong combination of mutual interests and synergistic policy that have already drawn us very close together. The ROK's New Southern Policy, India's Act East policy have some very obvious complementarities. We've built up our mutual trust with consistent effort over time. And we have the advantages of a shared commitment to democracy, business-friendly and market-friendly policies, and a shared faith in rule of law as we go about our business. There was a point which Chairman Lee made in the course of his remarks when he said that while the big companies will find their way, it is really the small and medium enterprises which have in many ways been powering Korean outward investment over the past several years. They are the ones who really need to be helped and facilitated. And I must say, you've really taken the words out of my mouth. This has been precisely what the embassy and the ICCK have been trying to do over the past several months. We have tried to make it possible for the Korean SMEs to navigate their way through the Indian system. We have tried to give them the kind of handholding that they require, and we have also tried to inform them of the developments in India so that they are more aware of the opportunities that exist. We will continue on this path. It is slightly uphill because in many times we find that getting access to groups of these SMEs is a problem. We are trying to address that by working with organizations like COSME, by working with the business chambers in the smaller cities and towns of Korea. So I would say that we have just started on this journey. We have a long way to go, but at least we have begun. What is the real strength of the India-ROK partnership? Rajiv, how much time do I have? When do I need to wrap up?
Another 2 minutes, ma'am.
The 2 minutes, okay. Where is the real strength of the India-ROK partnership? I would say that this is the fact that India has what Korea needs and Korea has what India needs. India has an abundance of young and energetic human resource. We have, if I were to take just one parameter, we have 130 million people in India who are completely fluent in the English language. And that, as we know, is the language of business across the world today. And I would put it to you that that is a huge advantage that we enjoy. And this is an area where Korea, with its dwindling and its aging population, needs people. So this is where I would see a wealth in India which Korea needs. What is the wealth in Korea which India needs? Capital. I think Korea really has the kind of investable capital that India, which is very, very hungry for capital, given the kind of huge infrastructure development plans that we have in mind. We have plans of $1.4 trillion worth of infrastructure projects in play over the next 4 to 5 years. We have huge needs in our healthcare, in our education, in our technology. You name the sector, and there is a requirement for investment, technology, and expertise. And I think Indian companies and Korean companies, by working together, will really be able to tap into this opportunity and this challenge both. Just one last point. I think it is telling that in a virtual global investors roundtable that was chaired by our Prime Minister just last week, at which 20 institutional investors were invited to attend. Korea was one of them. Korea was part of that conversation, and I think that in itself is an indicator of the kind of confidence and the kind of optimism that we in India repose in this very, very important relationship. Rajiv, I had lots of other stuff to say, but I think I will defer to the clock and stop right there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for sort of saying and delivering very important information to our friends in Korea. But now it's my special honor and privilege to invite Dr. Guru Prasad Mohapatra. He is one of the very important and senior secretaries, Government of India. He has vast experience of working in many different and diverse fields, right as municipal commissioner in the very dynamic state of Maharashtra, to urban development, power sector, and just before he took over as Secretary DPIIT, he served also as the chairman of the Airports Authority of India. He shall be delivering a keynote address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Kaul. Our President of Novelis Asia, Mr. Sachin Satpute, former member of the Korean National Assembly and President of the KGM Lab, Mr. Jae Young Lee, our very able, enthusiastic, and proactive ambassador to the Republic of Korea, Sri Priya Ranganathan, Mr. Rajiv Kaul, and distinguished participants. At the outset, let me confess that it's indeed a pleasure to be addressing this August gathering, as two very large global economies, India and Korea, share a responsibility to build a very vibrant trade and economic relationship. For the past several years, India and Korea, the third and the fourth largest economies of Asia, have been important engines of regional and global economic growth. Therefore, a very strong economic partnership in India and Korea would be beneficial, and the collaboration is welcome. The Republic of Korea has historically been a key economic partner for India, and we are pleased to note that India is rightly placed to continue welcoming Korean investors to synergize with India's opportunities and the potential that is hugely enhanced by India's Act East policy and our Honorable Prime Minister Make in India initiative, complemented by Korea's new Southern policy. Korea was the third largest Asian foreign direct investor in India in 2019-20, and between April 2000 and June 2019, in the space of around 2 decades, Korea has invested over $4.5 billion into India. In fact, some of the Korean brands like LG, Samsung, Hyundai are almost household names in India. India is home to over 15,000 Koreans, with Korean townships springing up organically near supply chain clusters created by various Korean giants, Kia Motors in Andhra Pradesh. You will all appreciate the immense success Korean investors have continued to experience in India. As I mentioned, they have not only emerged as leaders for the domestic market, but have also leveraged the infrastructure offered by India to make for the world. Hyundai Motors is the second largest car manufacturer and leading car exporter in India. Samsung and LG, which I mentioned a little while back, they have set up the world largest mobile phone market here. LG Electronics manufacturing unit at Greater Noida, closer to Delhi, is one of the eco-friendliest units among all LG manufacturing plants globally. And there are so many examples like that. Our strong partnership is now extended into existing opportunities offered by the Indian startup ecosystem, the world's fastest growing startup ecosystem. Korean funds have been extensively investing in Indian startups. Our ambassador just mentioned about the Honorable PM's interaction with the global funds, but the Korean funds' interests in the Indian startup has been continuing for some time. And recognizing this synergy, our two nations have launched the India-Korea Startup Bridge. Launched under our government's flagship Startup India initiative, this bridge aims to be a one-stop platform to bring India and South Korean startup ecosystems closer. Two successful startup challenges, the SBI Startup Launchpad Challenge and the Mahindra Rural Health Challenge, were also launched in 2019. An India-Korea Startup Center has also been set up in the India's national capital region, that is Delhi, and we welcome the growth of our strong ties into newer areas of collaboration. India's commitment to reforms is evident from the width and the scale of reforms undertaken at the pan-India level over the last 5 years under the visionary leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister. This is evident from India's steady climb over the last 5 years in the ease of doing business ranking of the World Bank. From around 142nd position in 2014, India's climb to 63rd position in 2019 is very well known. At the same time, India is committed at all levels to reduce the compliance burden that the trade and industry, not only in our country, but global investors face in India. Several key initiatives have been taken. Our ambassador mentioned a few of them, but just to recapitulate, with the reduction in corporate tax in September 2019, we are probably today one of the least corporate tax regimes in the world. With the introduction of the goods and service tax in a country as diverse, as huge as India, this is probably one of the most significant indirect taxes reform initiative taken anywhere in the world. Our recent agri reforms, the recent labor reforms, the GST extension, exemptions and export freight, and the single window system for clearances that we have set up are some of our very significant pro-investor initiatives. I would like to inform you that recently the Union government has announced the formation of an empowered group of secretaries, which we call as EGOS, under the chairmanship of the Cabinet Secretary, to essentially handhold the investors and take prompt decisions which the investors seek. Similarly, a project development cell has been formed in 29 government departments, essentially to prepare investable projects and constantly have a dialogue through the Indian embassies abroad with the potential investors and help them to operationalize their investment decisions in India. We have an industrial information system. I hope some of you have a chance to look at the industrial information system, which is a GIS-enabled database of all industrial areas, including clusters, parks, nodes, and covering almost 3,300 odd industrial parks and estates, covering more than 4.76 lakh hectares of land. We have a huge project called the National Infrastructure Pipeline, which will be of immense interest to the Korean infrastructure companies which are looking to India as an investment destination for infrastructure projects. The supply chain integration between Korea and India is of great importance. During the COVID unprecedented time, we saw the severe disruptions to the global supply chains. All of us realized the pitfall of depending on a particular country for production. So this COVID has indirectly helped us in recognizing the limitations of the such lopsided supply chain dependence on a particular country. Hence, COVID presents a great synergy between Korea, being global leaders, and India, which offers suitable industrial ecosystems, supportive policies, and strategic locations. Recognizing this opportunity, our Honorable Prime Minister of India, in his address to the nation on 12th May 2020, laid out his vision for a US $5 trillion economy through Atmanirbhar Bharat, self-reliant India, which is a proud India which produces for itself and produces for the world with appropriate global synergy. Traditionally, the India-Korea collaborations has been focused primarily on the sectors like electronics, chemicals, petrochemicals, textiles, and auto companies. However, we now see a lot of great synergy between India and Korea, developing in sectors like food processing, defense, energy, startups, pharmaceuticals, and medical devices. We hope the success of the Korean companies in this sector will usher in a new momentum for more investment across a variety of sectors in India. Let me assure all our friends in Korea, let me assure particularly Mr. Lee in Korea, who is one of our distinguished participants today, that through our Indian embassy in Korea, will definitely be much more proactive in resolving the current issues in India and also to guide you to a proper investment destination in India. I once again thank CII for organizing this India session at the Asian Leadership Conference, and my best wishes to all the participants for a very happy Diwali ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I think it was an outstanding keynote address, and it greatly built upon, in a way, the foundation laid by the previous speakers, in particular, Her Excellency Ambassador Shri Priya Ji. Now, for me to offer a few concluding remarks, I think will not be very proper or appropriate, because we have heard from our panelists a very comprehensive input of the opportunities that India offers. I would just like to add that despite the drop in our GDP this year, our rebound of our economy is going to be phenomenal next year. And I think we can look in terms of a real GDP growth next year of 9 to 10%. And therefore, the opportunities for Korean companies in particular to come in now are likely to be of immense benefit, not only to India, but indeed to themselves in embarking the Indian markets at a time. Similarly, companies who are already invested here, that is Korean companies already invested in India, I know they are also planning investments. And earlier today, I had the pleasure of hearing the Korean ambassador to India telling us about, I think, a $54 million increased investment for ramping up capacity for Kia Motors. So that augurs well. And at the time of any pandemic, any trouble, there lies immense opportunity. So let us all resolve together that we will optimize on the opportunities that lie ahead. With these, may I once again thank all the panelists. Dr. Mahapatra, thank you very much. Shri Priya Ji, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. And last but certainly not the least, thank you very much, Mr. Satpute. With this, we conclude. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.